Hello, my name is Jen, and welcome back to my channel, Literary Love 123, where I like to discuss horror from an academic standpoint. But today we are going to be starting a Zombiethon vlog. If you did not know, May is Zombie Awareness Month, and a fellow booktuber, Kat from Kat's Novel Adventures, has created a wonderful, wonderful event for May called Zombiethon. So you get to follow me along as I get up to lots of zombie shenanigans in this vlog. Let's get started. Today is Sunday, May 5th. So there have been several days already that I have been participating in Zombiethon since it started May 1st. But I want to take you back in time a little bit to share some of the things that I've gotten up to so far. So, my husband and I went on Friday to pick some blackberries, which I felt is very fitting for a Zombiethon vlog. I can't even think of what I'm trying to say, because one of the things that will be important during the zombie apocalypse is that you know how to survive and you know how to gather food. So we, as I mentioned, went and picked blackberries. So I'll show you that clip and let you follow along with our blackberry picking session. So, here are some of the things that I have done so far as watching videos, movies, television shows, reading for Zombiethon. I've got some notes here so I won't forget anything. So, one of the things that I have done is to watch a video on YouTube. And this is from Monstrum on PBS. And the title of this video is Modern Zombies: The Rebirth of the Undead. It is hosted by Dr. Emily Zarka. I will link this video down in the description box. I took a couple of notes from this video. One of the quotes that really stood out to me is from Robin Means Coleman. And she has a PhD. I'm not sure in what field, but she said horror is our sociocultural syllabus. And I thought that was very interesting to think about, because one of the things that horror does is to reflect current sociocultural fears. And I thought that was interesting. Another quote is from Sarah Juliet Lauro, who has a PhD, and she's the editor of this book that I'm reading, Zombie Theory, a Reader. But in the video, and this came out in 2021, in this video, Sarah Juliet Lauro mentioned that the next phase of zombies that she saw on the horizon was the eco zombie. And that, of course, made me think about The Last of Us, the video game and the TV series, because that has to do with a fungus, right? And that is like eco zombie. Another thing that really tied this video well to what I was doing is I watched the movie The Girl with All the Gifts. Now, I have not read the book, and typically I would read a book before watching a movie, but I don't know if I'll have time to get to that book this month. So I went ahead and watched the movie, and that features a eco zombie style of zombie. I really enjoyed the movie. I liked how there was that reference at the beginning of the movie to Pandora from Greek mythology, and how Pandora opened up a box and all of the chaos and evil was unleashed on the world. But then at the bottom of that box, there was hope. And that really fit well with what took place in that movie, with our main character, Melanie. She could be seen as this Pandora type figure. Then also one of the things that I appreciated about this movie too was that the characters were very nuanced. There was a great deal of character development that took place throughout the movie. The Girl with All the Gifts. At the beginning, I had just kind of looked at a sergeant, I think is Sergeant Parks, and Dr. Caldwell as being just totally terrible and evil people. But as the movie goes on, you begin to see some of the reasons why they're doing what they're doing. There's no cut and dry, black and white. This character's bad, this character's good. So I really appreciated that nuance and being able to look at these characters and understand that they are doing what they think is right and what they think is best for humanity, even if it seems, you know, terrible at the time. Another thing that I've been doing is working on my zombie painting. I've got diamond painting coasters that I'm working on that are zombie eyeballs, and I meant to bring them in here and show them to you, but I forgot. So I'll show them in just a minute. And then while I'm working on my zombie eyeball diamond painting coasters, I'm rewatching The Walking Dead. I mentioned somewhere, I think in my plans video, that I'll only prefer the first maybe 6 seasons of The Walking Dead. Then I kind of quit watching it because it didn't pique my interest anymore. But right now I'm rewatching season 4, and one of my favorite monologues, I guess, or dialogue. I don't know. It's a speech sort of, but it's in conversation. And that is when Herschel, one of my favorite characters, gives this great speech, that you breathe, you risk your life speech. And that resonates on so many levels beyond just a commentary on zombies. I'm going to link that scene down below in the description box because I will read a portion of that speech to you, but I cannot deliver it in the way that Scott Wilson, who played Herschel on The Walking Dead, delivers it. But this is what he says. The clip from the show that I'm sharing down below will give you the full context of what is going on when Herschel gives this speech. But there is a terrible flu that is fatal. It's killing off a lot of the characters, and Herschel is a veterinarian. But, kind of at this point, he's the only doctor that's able to help. The other doctor is actually very sick with this flu too. And Herschel is putting himself at risk to try to help the people who are suffering from this flu. And his daughter Maggie and Rick Grimes, the main character, at least at this point in the show, he is, they're concerned about Herschel's well being, and they're trying to keep him from going around those sick patients. And Herschel delivers this speech. Listen, damn it. You step outside, you risk your life. You take a drink of water, you risk your life. And nowadays, you breathe and you risk your life. Every moment now, you don't have a choice. The only thing you can choose is what you're risking it for. Now, I can make these people feel better and hang on a little bit longer. I can save lives. That's reason enough to risk mine. And you know that. It's such a powerful moment and one of my favorite parts of the entire series. So I hope you will watch that clip down below so you can see Scott Wilson's delivery. Hey, it's Monday morning, May 6th, about 10:15, and I realized I never checked back in yesterday or last night to show you the progress I've made with the diamond painting zombie eyeball coasters that I've been working on. So I thought I would hop on this morning and show you the progress I've made so far. So I've gotten 4 filled in with one of the beaded colors, the one marked number 1. You can kind of see the silver shimmery there. I decided to go ahead and do all of the number 1 color beads on all of the coasters before I start another color. This morning I've gotten a little bit done on this one, as you can see. I haven't had a lot of time to read my zombie theory book since I checked in last time, but I've read one essay so far, and this essay is called Some Kind of Virus, and this is written by Jen Webb and Samuel Burnand. But just one of the things that I wanted to briefly talk about was their view of zombies as far as doing a psychoanalytical um, discussion. And I just want to read a little bit from this essay that I found to be really interesting. So this I'm trying to read. I guess I'm gonna have to kind of look to the side to read this to you. Sorry for not looking directly at the camera right now. Psychoanalysis provides one point of entry to the trope of zombie, particularly as it allows readings that focus on identity and loss. Because of because of zombies' likeness to human beings. This is well established in the academic literature and in popular narratives. Think Day of the Dead, where the crazy scientist Dr. Logan insists of his zombies, quote, they are us. They are extensions of us. They are the same animals. And that's the end of the quote from the movie. The same, yet not identical. Zombies are people without minds, the undead, and thus are both us and not us. In this respect, they are like the dead themselves, and so they must be exiled from the community of the living. And one of the examples, too, that the authors of this essay give as far as reinforcing the idea that these zombies are like us, but not like us. They are us, but they're not us. Is from the movie 28 Days Later. You may recall that scene in the movie where Jim, our main character, takes on the zombie-like qualities. Even though he has not actually turned, he takes on those qualities. And the authors here say Jim takes on many of the physical and emotional characteristics of the infected so that he might survive the horror being dealt out by his own kind. So when this happens, according to Webb and Bernard, Jim, for all intents and purposes, in his moments of rage, is a zombie. So I just thought that was an interesting way to think about how zombies reflect human nature. And I think this also leads back to discussions that have been had many times about the idea that the humans are the very scariest parts of the zombie apocalypse, in thinking about what humans end up doing to one another sometimes. So I will check back in when I've read a little bit more of this and gotten some more diamond painting done. See you in the next check-in. Bye. Cheers. My son Josh, home from school. Ren, what are you listening to? Who are you listening to? Who is that? Is that Taylor Swift? Hello, it is Wednesday, May 8th. It's about 10:15 in the morning, and I wanted to check back in. You just saw some footage of my son home from school for a week. He took me to brunch at our local cafe, so that was nice. And then you also got to see some footage of one of my daughters who is a big Swiftie like her mom. So she was vibing to a Fortnite from Taylor Swift's new album. So back to some zombie talk. So since last time I checked in, I have finished the number one colored diamond beading or whatever you want to call it for all of the six coasters. So I'm going to move on to another color today, probably 14, because that's on all of them with the little like center here. And I have not been reading any more of my zombie theory a reader the past few days. I have been actually doing more watching of zombie stuff. So let me talk a little bit about what I've been watching since last time I checked in. So one of the things I watched was on a YouTube channel called Revolution and Ideology. And their talk was about zombies in history. They talked about zombie as myth versus zombie as metaphor. And it was a really interesting talk. I will link their video down in the description box below. Something else I watched was Why Zombies Matter, and this was a TED Talk by Kyle Bishop. Kyle Bishop actually wrote his PhD dissertation on zombies. And I just want to go over some of the points that Kyle Bishop talked about in this TED Talk. I will be linking this down in the description box below too, but just a disclaimer, the video and audio is not of the best quality, so just know that when you're watching it that it's not the best quality, but I still watched the whole thing. It's not very long, maybe 16, 17 minutes, but what Mr. Bishop was saying was so interesting. I had to, or Dr. Bishop, I guess he's got his PhD. What Dr. Bishop was saying was just so interesting. I just wasn't too worried about the, lack of quality with the audio and video. But one of the things that he brought up was that there had been vampiric literary tradition, ghost literary tradition, but there hadn't necessarily been a zombie literary tradition. And that was an interesting point that he brought up that I hadn't really thought about before. He also went over what he called the taxonomy of the zombie. Something that he mentioned that I want to do some more research on that I was not aware of. He said that George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, that Romero had wanted to do his own kind of adaptation of Richard Matheson's book, I Am Legend. And I had not previously been aware of that it was supposed to be a kind of take on I Am Legend. So I want to do some further research into that. One of the things that he also talked about was in kind of developing his PhD on zombies, he started to think about taking screen zombies plus literary vampires plus legends of the ghoul and how that has kind of shaped some of the interpretations of zombies over the years. So that was something else I wanted to look at too, the idea of screen zombies, literary vampires, and legends of the ghoul. So got further research that I want to do in that also. One of the quotes from Dr. Bishop's talk is that he says that zombies tell us about ourselves, things we might not want to know. He talked about how zombies, like monsters in literary and cinematic tradition, demonstrate things about ourselves and things about society to us. And then he talked about how the word demonstrate, like you had monster within that word. So that's something else that I want to research. He talked about zombies from a psychoanalytic standpoint as being examples of the return of the repressed. So, of course, psychoanalysis, mostly synonymous with Sigmund Freud, but also with Lacan. You can look into Lacan's psychoanalytic theories too. So that's something else I want to look into. He also talked about in this TED Talk how zombies are malleable, and that's one reason why we see different iterations of zombies over time, and how zombies can come to represent several different things because they are very malleable. They can be adapted to whatever current events are taking place. He talked about historical connections from the idea of zombies during the Cold War era, the idea of zombies after 9/11. And this TED Talk is from, let me see, I hope I put the date on when he started this. I did not put the date on, but I'm thinking just from my recall that it was like 2019. So this was even before we had the global pandemic in 2020. Um, so the thing that he mentioned too is how zombies are also representative of the infected. And so I certainly think that we're going to see more zombies like that, possibly as related to what happened in 2020. He also talked about zombies as being representative of fears of terrorism, infection, as I mentioned, invasion, fear of the other. Then he talked about some of the more recent views and adaptations of zombies. He talked about what he called the riceification of zombies, saying that now we're seeing, in the same way we saw what Anne Rice did with vampires in her vampire collection of books, like Interview with a Vampire and its other sequels, I guess you call it. I don't know. But he talked about how we're starting to see the riceification of zombies that are sympathetic, zombies that are protagonists, zombies that are even sexy, right? He referenced Warm Bodies and the Santa Clarita Diet. And his kind of prediction for what zombies may mean in the future are they can be representative of the disenfranchised, the misunderstood, the othered, and even the evolutionary future. And one of the photos he had up to represent this idea of zombie as the evolutionary future was a photo from the movie The Girl with All the Gifts, which I watched and talked about earlier in this video. So, anyway, it was a really, really interesting talk that made me think about a lot of different aspects when it comes to zombies. And as you, noted, gave me some ideas for further research. So, I'm going to go now. I've got to run a few errands and I've got another class to teach this afternoon. But I will check back in with you when I have some other things to talk about. Bye. I am taking my morning walk, but I am definitely keeping my eyes open for any zombies that may appear in the woods. Hello, it is Friday, May 10th. It's about 10 o'clock in the morning. I just got back from a morning walk a little while ago. We have a little bit of cooler weather right now, which is great. And I am pretty sure this is going to be the last of the cool weather that we get until late fall in my area. So, over the next few days, I'm going to take advantage of that cooler weather. But you're not here to talk about the weather. You're here to talk about zombies. So let me tell you what kind of zombie stuff I've been up to since the last time I checked in. I am getting close to finishing my diamond painting coasters. I went ahead last night while I was watching a couple of episodes, or rewatching, I should say, a couple of episodes of The Walking Dead, and I put the bottoms here on the coasters. I've gotten a fair amount here done with the eyes. I don't think I have any of them completely finished yet, But this one's pretty close, right? I've just got to go in and fill in the last few diamonds in this one. So I'm excited to finish this project and then be able to use these coasters. Other than the few episodes I've rewatched of The Walking Dead, I have not watched any other zombie content since the last time I checked in. I've also not read any more zombie content. It's been a busy couple of days, but today I am going to read Kids, which is a short story from John Langan's The Wide Carnivorous Sky and Other Monstrous Geographies. It is a story about zombie kids. And I hope to have time also to read one more essay in Zombie Theory, a Reader, which is edited by Sarah Juliet Lauro. I'm going to have a busy weekend too. We're having a little grilling out session with some family tonight. Tomorrow morning, my sister and I are going to take a 3.5 hour trip to go visit our parents and see our mother for Mother's Day. So we'll spend the night there tomorrow night. And then I'll be coming back home Sunday. So I probably won't get any zombie content in over, Saturday or Sunday. Um, Other than that, I think that's all I have to report right now. But I will see you again in the next check in. Bye. Hello, it is Tuesday, May 14th, about 2:30 in the afternoon. It's been a few days since I did a check-in. I was gone to my parents' house over the weekend to spend time with my mom for Mother's Day. And while I was there, I heard cicadas like I've never heard them in my entire life. Now, I have always lived in either Alabama or Mississippi, so I'm very familiar with the sound of cicadas in the summer. But my parents, where they are, they're having the both of those broods, the 13-year and 17-year cicadas who have come out from under the ground, and I've never in my life heard anything like it. It was so loud, so constant. Like, as soon as my sister and I got to our parents' house, because we just rode together, because our parents live like 3.5 hours away from where my sister and I are now. And so as soon as we like opened the car doors, we were like, what is that sound? And my sister was like, oh my gosh, that's those cicadas. We could hear them inside my parents' house too, like over the sound of the television. Never heard anything like it. I am not sure that the clip I'm going to share with you will do it justice, but I do have, after this check in, you will get to see and hear a clip of the cicadas. It was wild. It very much was reminiscent too of like The Walking Dead. I noticed as I was rewatching some of those episodes, you can definitely hear the cicadas in the background there, because a lot of The Walking Dead was filmed in the summertime. And of course, it's filmed like in and around Atlanta, Georgia, where they have cicadas too. Now, other than listening to cicadas and watching The Walking Dead, I did finish my diamond painting coasters, my zombie eyeballs. I love them. Like, I don't know how well you can see them, but I'm just going to kind of quickly go through each of the ones that I have so you can see all the colors. And I had so much fun doing these coasters. And the backing, is already on. I put that on. And then I'm going to put the sealant on them too, just to make sure they are ready to actually be used. So besides diamond painting and watching The Walking Dead, I haven't done a lot of other zombie stuff except for reading a very short story, the one I mentioned previously from John Langan's The Wide Carnivorous Sky and Other Monstrous Geographies. And it's really very short. It's like 2 pages, called Kids. But John Langan really packs a punch into the 2 pages. The main character is a high school English teacher, and he's in his classroom one day when all of a sudden a large group of students enters into the room. But the unusual thing is that these students are only around 6 years of age. And some of them, he says, even look to be as young as 4 and 5 years old. And they don't say anything. They just kind of come into his classroom and stand there. So very creepy, right? Very creepy kids. So he asked them if they need help, and none of them really respond. So he thinks maybe it's his high school English class playing like a trick on him or something. The kids, and not only are creepy because they're not speaking at all, but he describes them as almost, their eyes are so dark that they really almost appear to be completely black, which kind of calls back to the whole black-eyed children folklore and urban legends. And then he also talks about how their clothes are really filthy. And then he talks about how all the children stink. So he's feeling rather unnerved. And he decides to go get help for the children and see if he can find out what's going on. However, when he walks past the children, one of the children trips him. And once he's on the ground, things go really, really badly. It's a very short story, like I said, 2 pages, so I don't want to say a whole lot more about what happens. But since we are talking about zombies, you can probably figure out where it goes from there. So that's all I have for right now. So I'm going to close out this check in. I'm going to put a clip up that you'll see next so you can hear the sound of the cicadas at my parents' house. And I will check in with you again when I have some more news to share. Bye. Hello, I apologize for the bad lighting. I'm currently sitting in the parking lot waiting to go in for a doctor's appointment. But I wanted to check in to say that I watched Dawn of the Dead, the 1978 version, last night, and I had forgotten, because it had been years since I watched it, I had really forgotten just how campy that is and how ridiculous the zombies look and their makeup. I mean, but I had so much fun watching it. I mean, it's a classic for a reason, but I had really seriously forgotten just the camp level of that one. But that's really all I wanted to say. I just wanted to check in and say I'm still having fun watching and reading zombie content. I will check back in with you later. Bye. Rena, you stole my chair. Rena, can I have my chair back? No. Hello, it's Sunday afternoon, about 1:45. It is May 19th. I am excited about going live on Kat's channels for our Zombiethon cocktail hour. I will be making a zombie cocktail, which I think I mentioned previously, but it's got 4 kinds of rum, pineapple juice, papaya juice, lime juice. Supposed to have sugar in it too, but it sounds like it's going to be pretty sweet as it is. So I may or may not put the sugar in it, but you can strike a match to it and it should burn. So I'm excited. Mixing drinks with matches, what could be the problem, right? Uh, so other than that, you've seen kind of my typical morning routine, getting coffee. You got a little glimpse of my daughter, who is very energetic and very excited. So it's always good to me when I get to see her being happy like that, even if she had stolen my chair, as you could see in the previous clip. But let's get back to some zombie talk. So, since I checked in last time, I watched Shaun of the Dead for the first time. And my husband and I both enjoyed it. We both got some good laughs. I loved so many different parts, but I think the part that made me laugh the most is that Sean's mother is named Barbara. So he is on a phone call with her, letting her know that he's going to come and, rescue her and help her through this time. And he's like, we're coming to get you, Barbara. It was so fun. So that's definitely going to be a movie that I will rewatch every May for Zombiethon. Other than that, moving on to the serious side of zombies, I read another essay in zombie theory, and the essay that I read, since I checked in last time, let me get to it. Why didn't I get to it before I got onto the check in? Who knows? But this one is titled Ugly Beauty Monstrous Dreams of Utopia, and it was written by David McNally. And I just want to read some of the quotes from this one. And I think you'll see why I really enjoyed this essay so much. No grotesque species so commands the modern imagination as the vampire and the zombie, two of my favorite subgenres of horror right there. In fact, these two creatures need to be thought conjointly as interconnected moments of the monstrous dialectic of modernity. Like Victor Frankenstein and his creature, a third hit for me right here. Now we have mention of Frankenstein, which is one of my favorite classics. Anyway, like Victor Frankenstein and his creature, the vampire and the zombie are doubles, linked poles of the split society. If vampires are the dreaded beings who might possess us and turn us into their docile servants, zombies represent our haunted self image, warning us that we might already be lifeless, disempowered agents of alien powers. This essay was really diving into the connection between Marxism and this idea of zombies. One of the things too that it talked about here is that the zombies in a lot of horror films represent a moment of rebellion, but also a moment of recuperation. McNally writes that these zombies, whenever they rebel, that they reclaim their very corporeality from the abstracting powers of capital, establishing the ontological precondition for the recovery of memory, identity, and history. And he once again reinforces this idea of vampires in relationship with zombies by writing that proletarian monsters are, by definition, monsters of the body. Not only do their corporeal powers become the life force of capital, McNally writes, but they also enable the latter's vampire like expansion. More than this, their emancipatory struggles entail monstrous claims of the body against the abstracting powers of capital. So I really enjoyed this essay, and I am going to be reading the next essay that I've chosen is Taking Back the Night of the Living Dead, George Romero, Feminism and the Horror Film. So I'm excited to read that essay, which is written by Barry Keith Grant, to see what kind of feminist ideas he takes out of Night of the Living Dead, and then incorporate my own thoughts about feminist theory in Night of the Living Dead. So I will check back in with you later. If you are so inclined, this will have already happened. So if you want to go back, if you missed the live zombie cocktail hour, you want to go back and watch that, I will link it down in the description box below. So I will see you next check in. Bye.
Hello, everybody! Woot woot! Hello, hello, to all our zombie friends out there. You're at Cat's Novel Adventures, and this is our first annual Zombiethon happy hour. Woo woo! Yes, everybody, whatever you're drinking, we're gonna share what we're drinking.
Hello, it's Tuesday, May 21st, about 9:30 in the morning. I wanted to check in and talk about what I've been up to the past few days. I shared a clip from the zombie cocktail hour that was hosted by the host and creator of Zombiethon. It was hosted on Kat's channel, and I had so much fun. I did spill my drink at one point. Well, technically, I didn't spill my drink. I was shaking it up in the cocktail shaker, and I hadn't put my lid on securely, so drink spilled all over me and my desk. I think that was like drink number 3 for me, so I don't know, maybe we can blame it on having a little too much to drink, but it was so much fun. I had a great time. I will also link in the description box below the other guests who are on for Zombie Cocktail Hours. So thank you for hosting that, Kat. It was so much fun. So other than that, you've seen more of me drinking coffee or preparing my coffee because, as you know from my description and the way I talk about coffee all the time, coffee is like the daily staple of my existence. So let me talk about what I've been reading since last check in. So again, this is a reread for me, just like kids from this collection. The next one, or the one that I'm currently rereading right now, is How the Day Runs Down. So I previously talked about the synopsis of this particular story, but one of the things that I appreciate in this story that I find to be a really unique take, other than it's written like a play format where you have like a stage manager and an audience and stuff like that, but it also is interesting to me because John Langan talks about the emotional impact of having to kill a zombie who is someone that you love. He talks about how difficult it is for these people to look into the face of loved ones and people they trusted and people that were important to them in their lives, and then have to, you know, kill them after they become zombies. I think that's really an interesting take. Also, he talks about how a lot of times in movies or television series, people are able to suddenly become adept not only at using guns, but other weapons like swords and things like that. And he talks about there would be a huge learning curve to being able to do that. And then he also talks about how you would have, what was I about to say? My train of thought has left the station and left me behind. What is it that he talks about? Crap. I don't remember. What was I going to say? I don't know. Anyway, let me move on to the other stuff I've been reading, and maybe I'll think about the point that I was about to make about how the day runs down. So this is Amy from Amy Noel's book club pick this month, and it is, let me see if that ring, there we go. The Reapers Are the Angels by Alden Bell, and it is a zombie story. And I'm only 38 pages into it, but it's a really short book. It's only like 225 pages. So we're following Temple, and it says, I'm just going to kind of give you the synopsis since I'm not very far into it. For 25 years, civilization has survived in meager enclaves guarded against a plague of the dead. A young woman named Temple wanders this blighted landscape, keeping to herself and keeping her demons inside her heart. She can't remember a time before the zombies, but she does remember an old man who took her in and the younger brother she cared for until the tragedy that set her off on her personal journey toward redemption. Moving back and forth between the insulated remnants of society and the brutal frontier beyond, Temple must decide where ultimately to make a home and find the salvation she seeks. A powerful story of survival and self discovery, The Reapers Are the Angels is terrifying, atmospheric, and gripping from its haunting opening all the way through to its shocking conclusion. And like I said, I'm only 38 pages into it so far, but I'm really enjoying it. It's got some grotesque descriptions, but at the same time, it's very beautifully written prose. And I've tabbed a couple of things. One of the things that I tabbed says the inward gaze is something she's not. Now, I gotta move my tab out of the way. Okay. The inward gaze is something she's not too fond of, but there are secrets that lurk in the mind, and she doesn't want any of them sneaking up on her. Sometimes it pays to take a deep look inside, even if you get queasy gazing into those dark corners. And I thought that was a really like enlightening view there. Because I feel like that way personally a lot. I know, this is no secret. I talk about it. I do have major depressive disorder. So there are times that I don't want to have to dive into certain parts within myself. And I have to do that anyway. I have to do that work because if I let it sneak up on me, then it's only going to become worse when it finally all comes out. And so I appreciate the way that there's this deep kind of insight into human nature that is written within this story about zombies. And the other thing that I tabbed is just purely like probably me reading too much into something. But at the beginning, the author, Alden Bell, has a couple of quotes like authors do a lot of times from other works. And one of the quotes is sometimes dead is better, from Pet Cemetery. And no, I won't try to do Judd Crandall's voice for that. But because Pet Cemetery was mentioned in this opening, I'm just curious because there's a character who's named Lewis. And I just don't know if that's pure coincidence, but I just put a note right here and like tab that where a character's named Lewis. And I just said, is this a coincidence or is this somehow related to that opening quote from Pet Cemetery? So again, that just may be me reading too much into it, but that's just something that I have in mind right now. I have not gotten to the next essay yet that I want to read in Zombie Theory, and the one that I've mentioned before. It is written by Barry Keith Grant, Taking Back the Night of the Living Dead, George Romero, feminism, and the horror film. So I'm interested to see what he has to say and what my thoughts about what he says and my own personal thoughts that I have already about a feminist theoretical view of George Romero's Night of the Living Dead. So that's what I've been up to. Today I need to prepare some of my classes that I'm teaching. And other than that, I hope to get to all of this reading that I want to get done for today. I will check back in when I have something else to report. See you next time. Bye. Hello, it is Sunday, May 26th, about 10:30 in the morning, and I wanted to come back on and talk about what I've been up to since the last check-in. I did finish The Reapers Are the Angels by Alden Bell, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. So, first of all, I want to go back and talk about how I had previously mentioned in a check in that there's an opening quote at the beginning of this book from Pet Cemetery. Sometimes dead is better. And I had mentioned that there was a character by the name of Lewis, and I was kind of wondering if that was going to have any kind of connection to Pet Cemetery. And I was also wondering if it was just me overthinking, as I tend to do. And as it turns out, it was just me overthinking, because this Lewis character isn't even in the story for very long and doesn't really have any connections to Pet Cemetery. So yeah, I think that's probably a little bit of that academic stuff left in me, where I'm always trying to dig really deep, which can be fun and I enjoy doing it, but sometimes it can get to be a bit too much. So yeah, that was just an example of me overthinking. One of the things that I really liked about this book is that it really dove deeply into some aspects of a zombie apocalypse that we wouldn't typically think of. For one thing, it takes place, I think it's like 25 years after everything has happened. Um, and so that's a little bit of a different perspective. I also like just some of the dialogue. I tabbed mostly things that just really spoke to me as far as deep kind of thinking. I had mentioned something previously before about the main character talking about she doesn't always like to do introspective kind of thinking because it brings up stuff that's hard to deal with. But she said at the same time, if she doesn't do that from time to time, then it's only going to end up kind of coming out in a really worse way later. So it's, kind of some of the things I learned in therapy is that you got to do the hard work sometimes to confront these things before they come out in some other, worse kind of way. And another aspect that I liked is the way that the character, our main character, Temple, thought about memories. And I just want to read this quote to you. These memories, it feels like she's back there in the moment, like she has the moment to do over and make different choices than she made. But she can't, because they're just memories and they're set down permanent, as if they were chiseled in marble. And so she has to just watch herself do the same things over and over. And it's a condemnation if it's anything. And I just thought, yeah, that's just so profound when we're thinking about past and how we may wish we could do something differently. But the fact of the matter is that we can't, right? It's past, and what we did is what we did. So that's just one example of the way that this book does something unexpected. I actually teared up in this book some. I do want to point out too, and this could be potentially spoiler, also content or trigger warning for disability. One of the characters is intellectually disabled, and sometimes I was uncomfortable with the kind of way that this character was spoken of. For example, our main character Temple, who loves this character and is taking care of him, also refers to him as a dummy, and I that really kind of got next to me. So that's just something I wanted to mention. And I think one of the other characters, a terrible character that you're not supposed to like anyway, I think this character uses the R word to refer to this individual. So that's just a couple of, problematic things that I wanted to mention. So I'm going to move on now and talk about another story that I read from The Wide Carnivorous Sky and Other Monstrous Geographies by John Langan. And the one I had previously talked about rereading was Kids, and then I reread How the Day Runs Down. And I mentioned kind of the synopsis of that in a previous clip, but I enjoyed it again. It also did some kind of different things with the idea of the zombie apocalypse. It's already set out in a unique kind of way, like a play. But if you are familiar with John Langan's writing, you know that he has a very unique style, somewhat stream of consciousness in a way. But one of the things that he does with this particular zombie story is to talk about things that we may not often think about. It's meta too, because these people are like aware of zombies. They're aware of zombie movies and things like that. And they're aware that what is happening is a zombie apocalypse. But one of the things that this story brings up is how a lot of times when you're watching television shows or movies about zombies, it seems like people that have not had any experience with certain weapons before, a lot of times they're just suddenly perfectly capable of using weapons. He also talks about how it's not as easy as one would think to just grab up some kind of sword and, use that to fight back against zombies if you're not familiar with that kind of weapon. And so I always appreciate the way that John Langan has this really different kind of way of looking at life and putting that out in his stories. I don't want to say a lot else about that one because it is short, but if you like John Langan's writing and you like zombies, I really think you would enjoy How the Day Runs Down. And the next thing I want to talk about is the last essay that I read in Zombie Theory, a Reader, which is edited by Sarah Juliet Lauro. And the last one that I read, and I should have had it opened already. I say this a lot, but then I don't have it open. But the last one I read was about feminism in Night of the Living Dead. And going into this one, before I started reading it, I thought that it was just going to be about the original 1968 Night of the Living Dead and the character of Barbara. But it actually talked about the 1990 version of Night of the Living Dead also, which is a George Romero film too. And Barbara is, a character in this one. I had not seen the 1990 Night of the Living Dead. So after I read this essay, I watched the 1990 version of Night of the Living Dead. So I'll be talking about both the original and that 1990 version as I'm talking about this essay. And this essay is titled Taking Back the Night of the Living Dead, George Romero, Feminism, and the Horror Film. So this quote at the beginning of this article, which I didn't mention the author, and the author is Barry Keith Grant. So Grant writes, Romero's broad knowledge of the genre in which he has most often worked is signaled in his films by numerous references to other horror movies, both in dialogue and visual style. In the afterword to his novelization of Martin, which was published in 1978, Romero explicitly writes that his intention was to revamp the vampire story. So that's something I had previously mentioned in one of my clips too, that the original Night of the Living Dead was Romero's kind of take on Richard Matheson's I Am Legend. But this article talks about the difference between Barbara in the 1968 version of Night of the Living Dead versus the version of Barbara in the 1990 edition of Night of the Living Dead. One of the things, and I don't know, and I should have looked this up beforehand, but I didn't, if there's any kind of meaning behind this, Barbara in the 1968 version of The Living Dead is spelled Barbra, Barbara. But in the 1990 version, at least according to this article, and I need to do further research, like I said, the 1990 version of Barbara is spelled Barbara, Barbara. So that was interesting to me too, because I hadn't previously realized that. And of course, if you know the original Night of the Living Dead, you know that the character of Barbara is pretty much helpless. She is hysterical. She is in this catatonic state. She really isn't very adept at survival. But in the 1990 version, it is different. She starts off almost in this catatonic state at first, but then she quickly becomes quite adept with using weapons. And she's also the voice of reason. It's also interesting if you're familiar too with Carol Clover's Men, Women, and Chainsaws. This kind of idea will be familiar to you in terms of like the final girl aspect of things. But in the 1990 version of Night of the Living Dead, once Barbara becomes this badass, she takes, changes out of her skirt and puts on like these pants and She also, this is something I meant to mention too. In the original Night of the Living Dead, Barbara has like this long hair. And in the 1990 version of Night of the Living Dead, Barbara has like a pixie cut, which a lot of times signals, this woman who's going to be a badass and kind of embodying, so to speak, masculine, uh, what am I trying to say? Masculine like elements to her that make her more likely to be heroic. And yeah, I get that, but at the same time, I'd like to see a woman with long hair and a dress or whatever fighting back. I don't think you have to necessarily masculinize, a woman to make her more adept at fighting back. But that is something that I noticed, that she had short hair that she changes out of the skirt and puts her pants on. Um, and one of the things that she, has to do is try to rein in these men who are fighting each other. So just like in the original Night of the Living Dead, where you have the main character Ben at odds with the real asshole guy, Mr. Cooper, the same thing happens in the 1990 version of Night of the Living Dead. But they go overboard, and Ben even acts way overboard too. Kind of this example of toxic masculinity with both of them. And Barbara says to them, hey, if you two don't shut up, we're never going to survive this. I'm busy trying to figure out how we're going to get out of this. And you two are just, at each other's throats. And I appreciated that, aspect. I thought that was interesting also. Just side note too, Ben in the 1990 version of Night of the Living Dead is played by Tony Todd. And I will also say that Tony Todd, in my opinion, was the only one who really did a good acting job in this version of Night of the Living Dead. The acting was not, very high quality at all. But I did have a lot of fun watching it, and I enjoyed watching Barbara take on this empowered role in that movie. So this concludes my Zombiethon month. I want to thank Kat at Kat's Novel Adventures so much for creating and hosting this wonderful event. And I look forward to next year's Zombiethon. And everyone, stay safe out there. Bye.